Sign it. Damian's voice was as cold and detached as the man himself, lacking any trace of warmth. He tossed the divorce papers onto the expensive mahogany table, where they landed like a piece of worthless paper, a final verdict on my 3-year marriage. I looked up at his handsome but completely indifferent profile. He wouldn't even spare me a glance, his gaze fixed intently on his phone. On the screen was a photograph his old flame, Chloe, had just posted from the airport after arriving back in the country, her smile as bright as a flower. 3 years of a lukewarm marriage to this block of ice was enough for me. I picked up the pen and, without the slightest hesitation, signed my name on the last page. Ilara. The stroke was clean and decisive. "I don't have much. It won't take me long to pack," I said, my voice calm. Damian finally looked up from his phone, a hint of mockery and impatience in his eyes. "The house, the cash, the stocks, it's all spelled out in the agreement. It's more than enough for you to live comfortably for the rest of your life. Don't try to pull any more stunts." He clearly expected me to cry or cling to him, perhaps to demand more, like he imagined any other rejected wife would. I just offered a small smile and shook my head. "I don't want any of it." His brow furrowed even deeper, his scrutinizing gaze trying to pierce right through me. I stood up, walked past him, and went to the corner by the floor-to-ceiling windows, to the spot that received the best sunlight. An orchid sat there, its blossoms quiet and elegant, its leaves a lush, vibrant green. It was a top-tier lotus petal orchid, the only possession I brought with me when I married into this family, and the only thing I wanted to take with me now. "I just want this," I said, pointing to the orchid. Damian froze for a second, then let out a sharp laugh, as if he had just heard the world's greatest joke. "Ilara, what kind of game are you playing now? Trying to show how noble you are with some worthless flower?" The contempt in his eyes felt like 1,000 tiny needles. I didn't explain. I just looked at him quietly. For 3 years, I had tended to this orchid myself every single morning. In the dead of night, when he couldn't see, I would even feed its roots with drops of my own blood. He had no idea this orchid was the vessel for the Thorn family's fortune, and that I was its keeper. Seeing my silence, Damian's patience reached its limit. He waved his hand dismissively as if shooing away a fly. "Whatever, just take your things and get out of my sight." I walked over and carefully cradled the pot in my arms. The ceramic was still warm from the sun. I walked past Damian holding it and didn't look back. The moment my foot crossed the threshold of the Thorn family's mansion, Damian's phone rang. The ringtone was shrill and urgent, like a death summons. I heard him answer, his impatient tone instantly freezing into shock and disbelief. "What did you say? We lost the bid for the waterfront plot? How is that possible?" I got into the taxi that was already waiting for me, the orchid in my arms. In the rearview mirror, the Thorn mansion, as opulent as a palace, grew smaller and smaller. I could just imagine the look on Damian's face. The waterfront plot was the most important project for Thorn Corp this year. Damian had poured everything into it and was certain it was a done deal. But he'd lost, and this was only the beginning. The driver glanced at me in the rearview mirror, then at the prized orchid in my arms, and asked cautiously, "Where to?" "Willow Creek Lane." It was a small apartment I had secretly bought with the savings I had before my marriage. I always knew this day would come. The car drove smoothly. I looked down at the orchid in my lap. Now that it was away from that place of immense power at the Thorn estate, its leaves seemed to have dimmed slightly, as if uneasy. I reached out and gently stroked a smooth leaf. "Don't be afraid. From now on, it's just you and me." The orchid's leaves seemed to understand, swaying gently in response. This fortune orchid was a gift from my grandmother. My grandmother had been the most famous mystic in New York City and a close friend of old Mr. Thorn. Years ago, when the Thorn family business was on the brink of collapse, it was my grandmother who used this orchid as the centerpiece of a ritual to gather fortune, securing the family's wealth for decades to come. But the ritual had a price. It required a direct blood relative of my line to nourish the orchid with their own blood, day and night, to keep it alive and anchor the family's luck. In exchange, the Thorns were to marry me and ensure I lived a peaceful life. It was a pact made by the older generation, unfortunately old. Mr. Thorn passed away early. Damian's father was a skeptic, and by Damian's generation, such things were dismissed as complete nonsense. He just saw me as a gold digger who had married him for his money. Fine. As of today, that pact was void. When I arrived at the small apartment on Willow Creek Lane, I placed the orchid in the best spot on the balcony and watered it carefully. Only after I was done did I finally have time to deal with my own affairs. My phone was flooded with messages. One was from my frenemy. Alara, did you really divorce Damian? Oh my God, you got kicked to the curb the second Chloe came back, you poor thing. But don't worry, I'm always on your side. Attached was a picture of her and Chloe posing happily together. There was also a voice message from Damian's mother, her tone arrogant and cruel. Alara, I told you from the beginning you weren't good enough for Damian. Now that you've taken the money, know your place and stop dreaming. The Thorn family is no place for a woman like you. I emotionlessly deleted the messages one by one, then opened an encrypted messaging app. The profile picture of my pinned contact was a deep, starry sky. I sent a message. I'm divorced. The reply was almost instantaneous. Congratulations. What do you need me to do? I looked out the window at the darkening sky and a cold smile touched my lips. Nothing, just watch the show. The next day, Thorn Corp's stock price plummeted without warning. The headline on the financial news screamed, Thorn Corp hits a wall, market cap evaporates by $10 billion in a single day. I sipped my oatmeal and scrolled through the news, feeling a sense of calm I hadn't felt in years. My phone rang again at the worst possible time. It was Damian. I let it ring until it went to voicemail. A text message popped up immediately, in his usual commanding tone. Where are you? Come back right now. I laughed softly and tossed the phone aside. Come back? Back where? The Thorn house isn't my home anymore. I leisurely finished my breakfast, took a picture of my orchid, and posted it to my social feed with the caption, New life, new beginnings. Before long, my feed was buzzing. The likes and comments were a mix of genuine and fake sympathy. Alara, don't be sad. You have to leave the wrong person to meet the right one. Oh my God, did Chloe just take your spot as Mrs. Thorn? The world of the rich is so cruel. Alara, you still have the nerve to post? How does it feel to be kicked out of your home? That last one was from Chloe using a burner account. Before I could even reply, an unexpected person liked my post. Marcus Sterling, the head of Sterling Industries. Marcus was Damian's biggest rival in the business world. The rumor in New York was that they had a personal feud and were constantly at each other's throats. I had only seen him a few times at business dinners. We weren't even acquaintances. Why would he suddenly like my post? As I was wondering, a message from Marcus came through. Miss Sloan, are you free for a cup of tea? I looked at the message, then at the vibrant orchid on my balcony, and suddenly understood. Smart people are always the first to smell an opportunity. I replied, Of course. We met at a quiet tea house. In person, Marcus had an even more commanding presence than he did in the news. He wore a perfectly tailored black suit. His features were sharp, and he carried himself with a calm confidence. He didn't beat around the bush. Is Thorn Corp's downfall related to you, Miss Sloan? I lifted my cup, blew on the floating tea leaves, and gave a non-committal answer. What makes you say that, Mr. Sterling? A gut feeling, Marcus said, his eyes locked on mine. Thorn Corp's recent string of bad luck is too strange, and it all started the day you left the Thorn family. He paused, his tone certain. You took something of theirs with you. I was slightly taken aback. I never thought he'd guess that much. You have quite an imagination, Mr. Sterling. I put down my cup, ready to end the conversation. The art of mysticism only works on those who believe. I didn't want to use it as a bargaining chip. I'm not imagining things, Marcus said, leaning forward slightly and lowering his voice. I just want to make a deal with you, Miss Sloan. You help me and I'll help you. Anything Damian couldn't give you, I can. His gaze was too sharp, as if it could see through all my defenses. I fell silent. What couldn't Damian give me? He had given me nothing but 3 years of cold indifference and a final get out. I don't need it, I said, standing up. My apologies, Mr. Sterling, but I have to go. The sunlight was a bit harsh as I walked out of the tea house. I didn't refuse Marcus's offer out of pride. The truth was, to deal with Damian, I didn't need anyone's help. I just had to wait quietly and watch the tower he built crumble brick by brick. Over the next few days, the bad news for Thorn Corp kept coming. First, a major overseas client of 10 years suddenly terminated their contract and immediately signed with Sterling Industries. Then, a financial scandal erupted within the company, and a key executive was taken in for questioning, causing widespread panic in the market. Damian was overwhelmed, reportedly holding up at the office for days. And his old flame, Chloe, seemed to be feeling the pressure too. She called me, her voice dripping with pity the moment I answered. Alara, I know you hate me and you hate Damian, but the company is innocent. A lot of employees depend on this job to support their families. Can't you just let the Thorn family go? She positioned herself on the moral high ground as if I were the one being unreasonable and cruel. I almost laughed. Miss Vance, are you mistaken about something? What happens to Thorn Corp has nothing to do with me. How could it have nothing to do with you? Chloe's tone grew frantic, her fragile act crumbling. Ever since you left, nothing has gone right for the company. Alara, what did you do? What could I possibly do? I asked slowly. I just moved out with a flower. Surely a company with decades of history isn't weaker than a single plant. On the other end of the line, Chloe was speechless. Finally, she hung up, seething. I could imagine her fuming. She had been living a life of luxury abroad, supported by Damian. Now that her cash cow was on the verge of collapse, she was more desperate than anyone. Not long after I hung up, my apartment doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole and saw Damian's mother, Isabella Thorn. She had always looked down on me, never giving me a kind look from the day I married into the family. Why would she stoop to visiting me today? I opened the door. Isabella was dressed in an expensive suit, but it couldn't hide the exhaustion and anxiety on her face. The moment she saw me, she started yelling. Alara, you jinx! Was this your doing? What did Damian ever do to you that you had to ruin him like this? I leaned against the doorframe, watching her coldly. Mrs. Thorn, be careful what you say. Me? Ruin him? What power do I have to ruin the great Damian Thorn? Still pretending? Isabella trembled with rage, pointing a finger at my nose. Don't think I don't know. Your dead grandmother was nothing but a charlatan who pretended to be a mystic. You must have learned her cheap tricks. I'm telling you, give the Thorn family's luck back right now, or I'll make sure you can't survive in this city. So she did remember my grandmother. Except in her mouth, the woman who had saved her entire family was now a charlatan. The last bit of warmth in my heart turned to ice. Mrs. Thorn, I'm tired. Please leave. I was done wasting my breath on her and moved to close the door, but Isabella grabbed the door, pulled a check from her purse, and threw it at me. $5 million. Take the money and undo your curse. The check fluttered to the floor. I glanced down at it, then laughed. $5 million? Mrs. Thorn, are you trying to buy off a beggar? I picked up the check and, right in front of her, tore it into tiny pieces. 3 years ago, when your family came begging at my grandmother's door, this wasn't the price. You! Isabella's face turned a furious shade of purple. Get out! I spat out the word and slammed the door shut. From outside, I could hear her enraged cursing. I just tuned it out, treating it like the barking of a stray dog. Damian finally came himself on a rainy night. He didn't have an umbrella and was soaked to the bone, his expensive suit clinging to his body, water dripping from his hair down his tense jawline. He looked much thinner, with dark circles under his eyes, which were riddled with broken blood vessels. He just stood there, downstairs from my apartment, staring up at my balcony without blinking. I glanced at him coldly from behind my curtains, then ignored him. If he wanted to stand there, let him. I turned on my stereo, put on some calming music, and began trimming my orchid. Its leaves were growing more vibrant, and a few new buds had appeared. It clearly liked its new home. The figure downstairs was like a stubborn statue, motionless in the rain. I don't know how long he stood there until the building manager called, politely mentioning that a gentleman had been standing downstairs for a long time, which wasn't a good look, and asked if I knew him. I said coolly, "I don't. He must have the wrong person." After hanging up, I drew the curtains. Out of sight, out of mind. The next morning, when I opened the door to go for a run, I found Damian still waiting. He was leaning against the wall, seemingly asleep, his face frighteningly pale. At the sound of the door, he jerked his eyes open. The eyes that were once filled with coldness and disdain were now full of exhaustion and a complex emotion I couldn't read. Alara. His voice was incredibly hoarse. I looked straight ahead, planning to walk right past him. But he grabbed my wrist. His hand was cold, chilling like the rain. "Let's talk." "There's nothing to talk about." I tried to pull away, but he held on tighter. "That orchid," he began with difficulty, his gaze falling on the balcony behind me. "Give it back to me." I finally stopped and turned to face him, a smile playing on my lips. "Damian, are you begging me?" His Adam's apple bobbed. He didn't speak, but the look in his eyes said it all. The high and mighty, untouchable Damian Thorn actually begging someone. How ironic. "Fine," I said, suddenly changing my mind and nodding. A flash of disbelief and joy crossed his face. I looked at him and said, word by word, "Kneel and beg me." Damian's face instantly went from pale to ashen, then to a furious dark red. The light in his eyes died, replaced by overwhelming rage and humiliation. "Alara, don't push your luck." "Am I pushing my luck, or are you just getting what you deserve?" I yanked my hand free. "When you treated me like an old object to be thrown away, did you ever think this day would come? When you kicked me out for Chloe, did you feel even a shred of guilt? Standing out in the rain was your own choice. If you want the orchid back, show me some sincerity. Otherwise, you can start planning Thorn Corp's funeral." After that, I didn't look at him again and went downstairs. Behind me, I could hear Damian's heavy breathing and a low, animalistic growl of suppressed rage. I thought Damian would give up after that. After all, his pride was more important than his life. But 3 days later, he came back. And this time, he brought Chloe with him. She clung to his arm, her makeup perfect, looking at me with the triumphant and charitable gaze of a winner. "Alara," she began, her voice sickeningly sweet. "Damian knows he was wrong. Just forgive him this once." She then glanced at Damian and lovingly stroked his face. Damian didn't flinch, but his expression was grim, his eyes heavy as he looked at me. I almost laughed at this lovely couple. Were they here to apologize or to piss me off? "Chloe, I don't think we're close enough for you to be playing mediator." I leaned against the door, my arms crossed. Chloe's smile stiffened, but quickly returned. "Alara, how can you say that? We were friends, after all." She took a velvet box from her purse and opened it in front of me. Inside was a dazzling diamond necklace. "I know you like this brand. This is their latest design. I had Damian buy it for you as our apology." She stressed the word apology as if it were the greatest gift in the world. I looked at the necklace, then at Damian. He remained silent, letting Chloe put on her show. This was his sincerity? Having his mistress use his money to buy off his ex-wife? How absurd, how utterly laughable. "Take your things." My voice went cold. "I find them disgusting." Chloe's expression finally cracked. She looked at Damian, her face a mask of hurt. "Damian!" Damian finally moved. He stepped forward, took the jewelry box from Chloe's hand and shoved it at me. "Alara, stop making a scene." His voice was laced with tired resignation. "Take the necklace, give me back the flower, and let's put this behind us." He still didn't get it. He thought I was doing all this for money, for revenge, to make him grovel. He had no idea what I was really protecting. I looked at him and suddenly felt exhausted by it all. I slammed the jewelry box onto the floor. The diamond necklace flew out, clattering loudly as it broke into pieces. "Damian!" Chloe gasped. I stared into his shocked eyes and said word by word, "I'll say it one last time. If you want the orchid, kneel and beg me. Otherwise, get out." The silence was deafening. Chloe let out a sob, staring at me in disbelief. Damian's fists were clenched at his sides, knuckles white, veins popping on the back of his hands. He glared at me, his eyes burning with a look that could have devoured me whole. After a long moment, he squeezed out a few words through gritted teeth. "Alara, you will regret this." With that, he grabbed Chloe and stormed away. Watching their determined retreat, I knew the final negotiation had failed. Damian's revenge came quickly. My small new flower shop was suddenly swamped by special attention from various city departments. Fire, health, tax inspectors came one after another, nitpicking every little thing, always finding some problem. Correction notices and fines piled up like snowflakes. Business plummeted, and my employees grew anxious. I knew it was Damian's doing. He was trying to force my hand. But he had miscalculated. I simply closed the shop, dismissed the staff, and gave everyone an extra 3 months' salary. Then, I got a call from Marcus. "Need any help?" His voice was as steady as ever. "No," I said calmly, looking out the window. "He doesn't have much longer." "Oh?" Marcus sounded intrigued. "You sound very confident." I didn't answer directly. "Mr. Sterling, is your previous offer still on the table?" He was silent for a few seconds. "Of course." "Good." A small smile played on my lips. "I need you to leak a story. Say that the reason Sterling Industries made such a miraculous comeback and quickly surpassed Thorn Corp is because you received guidance from a master who altered your company's feng shui and changed its fortune." Marcus was a smart man. He immediately understood my intention. "You want everyone to believe that this talk of fortune isn't just superstition." "Exactly." "Interesting," Marcus chuckled. "I like this story. Miss Sloane, it's a pleasure doing business with you." The news spread like wildfire. In the upper echelons of society, people believe in these things the most. Soon, theories about the transfer of fortune between the Thorn and Sterling families were rampant. Some said Marcus had hired a mystic from overseas to set up a powerful formation in his company. Others said the Thorns had disturbed their ancestral graves, causing their luck to decline. The stories became more and more fantastical. I don't know what Damian's reaction was to these rumors, but I knew he must have been losing his mind because Thorn Corp's stock had been hitting its daily limit down for a full week. Calls from banks demanding payment and breach of contract notices from partners were burying him in an avalanche of debt. The final straw was the old Thorn family estate. The family butler called Damian late at night, his voice trembling. "Mr. Thorn, it's terrible. The estate. The 100-year-old ginkgo tree has withered." That ginkgo tree was another crucial point in the Thorn family's feng shui, a counterpart to the fortune orchid. The orchid leaves, the ginkgo dies. It was an omen of utter collapse. When Damian appeared before me again, it was early one morning. I had just returned from a run and saw him standing at my apartment door, as if he'd been waiting for a long time. In just a few days, he had lost so much weight he was almost unrecognizable. His eyes were sunken, his chin was covered in stubble, and his designer suit was wrinkled and disheveled. He had lost all his former arrogance. He saw me, his lips moved, but no sound came out. The eyes that were once as sharp as a hawk's were now just gray and bloodshot. I ignored him and walked to my door to enter the code. Behind him, I saw a familiar figure. The old Thorn family butler, Mr. Hemlock. Mr. Hemlock looked at me, hesitating, then let out a heavy sigh and bowed deeply. "Miss Sloane, Just as I was about to go inside, there was a sudden thud behind me. I stopped and slowly turned around. Damian, the proud, arrogant man, was kneeling right in front of me. The sound of his knees hitting the cold, hard floor was dull and heavy. His head was bowed low, so I couldn't see his expression, only his clenched fists and slightly trembling shoulders. Mr. Hemlock was stunned and rushed to help him up. "Mr. Thorn, what are you doing? Get up!" But Damian pushed him away, stubbornly remaining on his knees. The air seemed to freeze. I looked at him, feeling nothing, not even a ripple of emotion. If anything, I found it a little funny. If he knew it would come to this, why did he act that way before? "Alara," he finally spoke, his voice as raspy as sandpaper. "I was wrong. I'm begging you. Please, give the orchid back to the Thorn family. I watched him quietly, saying nothing. Sunlight streamed through the hallway window, drawing a sharp line of light and shadow between us. He knelt in the shadow while I stood in the light. Are you really sorry? I asked softly, a hint of mockery in my tone. Sorry for yourself or for your family? He snapped his head up, his eyes filled with pain, regret, and turmoil. For the family, and for myself, I regret it, Alara. Regret, such a cheap word. Where was he when I was struggling to maintain our loveless marriage? Where was he when I was cutting my finger late at night to feed that orchid with my blood? Where was he when his mother humiliated me and his old flame provoked me? Now that he had nothing, he comes to me saying he regrets it. Damian, I said, looking him in the eye, each word clear and sharp. It's too late. There's no turning back the clock. You can't expect me to piece back together what you shattered. The orchid. I'm not giving it back. It belongs to a Sloane now. With that, I turned away from his pale, devastated face, walked into my apartment, and closed the door. From outside, I thought I heard a choked, animalistic sob. So what? It had nothing to do with me anymore. I thought that would be the end of it. Damian had knelt, his dignity shattered. The Thorn family was on the verge of ruin, their luck run out. My revenge was complete, but I never expected Chloe to be so insane. That afternoon, I was reading in my apartment when the doorbell started ringing off the hook. I looked through the peephole and saw Chloe. Her hair was a mess, her eyes were bloodshot, and she was pounding on my door like a madwoman. Alara, open the door! You bitch! Give me back my Damian! I frowned but ignored her. She continued to scream and curse outside, spewing all sorts of vile things which drew my neighbors out of their apartments to see what was going on. I put on my headphones and went back to my book. About half an hour later, it suddenly went quiet outside. I thought she had left. But the moment I took off my headphones, I smelled a strong, acrid smell of something burning seeping from under the door. A sense of alarm shot through me. I rushed to the door and saw flames raging outside. Chloe had poured gasoline at my door and set it on fire. She was insane. She was trying to kill me. Thick smoke instantly filled the room, choking me. My first instinct was to run to the balcony and grab the orchid. Even if I died, I would die with it. I covered my mouth and nose with a wet towel and tried to find a way to escape through the window, but I was on the 18th floor. There was no way out. The smoke grew thicker, and my consciousness began to fade. Just as I was about to lose hope, the apartment door was blasted open with tremendous force. A figure rushed in, silhouetted against the flames. It was Damian. His face and clothes were covered in soot, and strands of his hair were singed. He looked a complete mess. The first thing he saw when he burst in was the orchid in my arms. Only then did his gaze fall on me. Alara! He rushed over, snatched the orchid from my arms without a second glance at me, and turned to run back out. In that moment, my heart turned to ash. He had rushed into a burning building not to save me, but to save the plant that could rescue his family's fortune. In his heart, I, Alara, was worth less than a flower. I closed my eyes and gave up the struggle. Fine. Dying in this fire might be a kind of release. Just as my consciousness completely faded, another figure rushed in. It was Marcus. He took off his suit jacket, wrapped me in it, and swept me up into his arms. Don't be afraid, I'll get you out of here. His voice was steady and strong, like a shot of adrenaline to my frozen heart. I groggily opened my eyes and saw him carrying me past Damian, who was clutching the orchid and rushing out. The two men's eyes met in midair, one desperate and selfish, the other calm and resolute. Damian's steps faltered for a second. He looked at me, cradled protectively in Marcus's arms, his expression a complex mix of shock and fear. But in the end, he hugged the orchid tighter and ran out of the inferno without looking back. My heart died completely. I woke up in the hospital. Marcus was sitting by my bed. When he saw I was awake, he immediately handed me a glass of warm water. How are you feeling? I'm fine. My voice was raw and hoarse. Thank you. I should be thanking you, Marcus said, his gaze softening as he looked at me. If I hadn't come looking for you when I did, I can't imagine what would have happened. That's when I learned that Marcus had felt uneasy and decided to check on me, only to find Chloe setting the fire. He called 911 and then, ignoring the danger, rushed in himself. What about Chloe? The police took her away, arson and attempted murder. She'll likely spend the rest of her life in prison, Marcus said flatly, as if it were a minor detail. I nodded. I felt no sympathy for her. She got what she deserved. Just then, the hospital room door opened and Damian walked in. He had changed into clean clothes, but the exhaustion and dishevelment on his face were still visible. He wasn't holding the orchid. His eyes fell on me, then shifted to Marcus beside me, his gaze as dark as a storm cloud. Get out. I have something to say to Alara. It was a command, not a request. Marcus raised an eyebrow and looked at me, asking for my opinion with his eyes. I shook my head. Marcus understood. He said to Damian, Mr. Thorn, Alara is my patient right now, and my friend. I don't think she wants to see you. This is between us. It has nothing to do with you, Damian snapped. It does now, Marcus said, standing up and blocking my bed, confronting Damian. The two tall, equally impressive men faced off, their auras colliding and filling the room with a tense, oppressive energy. Damian, I finally spoke, my voice weak but clear. What are you doing here? Damian's gaze shot past Marcus, locking onto me. Alara, the orchid is a fake. I stared at him. What? I had it checked. It's just a normal orchid, not some fortune orchid. He practically yelled, his eyes filled with disbelief and the rage of being deceived. You lied to me. You were lying to me the whole time. Watching his furious, desperate display, I suddenly started to laugh, laughing until tears streamed down my face. So that's how it was. The treasure he had risked his life to save from the fire was a fake. The lifeline he thought would save him didn't exist. How utterly ironic. I lied to you? I wiped the tears from my eyes and looked at him coldly. Damian, are you still this clueless? The fortune orchid was never the plant. It was a person. It was me, Alara. It was my blood, my life force that sustained your family for 3 years. The person you threw out wasn't just your wife. It was the last hope for the Thorn family. Damian looked as if he'd been struck by lightning. He froze, the color draining from his face, leaving it a deathly white. He stared at me in disbelief, his lips trembling, unable to utter a single word. No, that's impossible. Believe what you want. I closed my eyes, unwilling to look at his shattered expression any longer. Now please get out. I don't want to see you ever again. Marcus gave a subtle nod to the bodyguards at the door. They immediately stepped forward and escorted the lost, broken Damian out of the room. The hospital room was finally quiet again. Damian completely fell apart. The day Thorn Corp declared bankruptcy and went into liquidation, a heavy snow fell over New York. I stood at my apartment window, looking out at the white, blanketed world. On my balcony, the orchid had quietly bloomed with a few more flowers, elegant and serene. It wasn't a fortune orchid. It was just a normal orchid that my grandmother had left me. The whole story about fortune and mystical rituals was something I made up. I was just an ordinary person. How could I have the power to change fate? I just knew Thorn Corp better than anyone. For those 3 years, I wasn't just a bored housewife who tended to flowers. Damian wouldn't let me get involved in the company, so I found my own ways to learn everything about it. I'm a skilled programmer, and I understand finance. I knew exactly how many holes were in Thorn Corp's glamorous financial reports, how many shady deals were hidden behind the numbers. The waterfront plot? I knew their bottom line because I had hacked into their competitors' servers. The overseas client canceling their contract? That was because I anonymously sent them proof that Damian was embezzling company funds to support his mistress. The financial scandal? I was the one who handed the compiled evidence to the Economic Crimes Unit. As for the withered ginkgo tree, I simply bribed the gardener to poison it. I planned every step meticulously, leading Damian into the trap I had set for him. I wanted him to believe that everything he lost was because he had abandoned me. I wanted him to kneel before me, to repent and beg, to experience for himself the fall from the clouds into the mud. I was the true puppet master. And Marcus, he was the most important piece in my revenge plot and also the biggest wild card. I initially contacted him only to use him to accelerate Thorn Corp's demise, secretly feeding him all of its weaknesses and vulnerabilities. He was a natural businessman and seized every opportunity I gave him, delivering precise and fatal blows. Our partnership was flawless, but I never expected him to develop real feelings for me, and I certainly never expected him to rush into a fire to save me. I don't think there's a single actress in this business who hasn't dreamed of winning this award, and I was no different. For years, I had imagined this exact moment standing on a brilliantly lit stage, surrounded by spotlights, giving my acceptance speech. A long time ago, I had even joked with him about it, rehearsing what I would say. I told him that I would mention his name first in my speech, and that he would be sitting in the audience waiting for the camera to show a split screen of both of our faces. But as my eyes scanned the crowd tonight, I saw an empty seat where Alexander Croft was supposed to be. 2 hours ago, he had told me that a last-minute important meeting had come up and that he wouldn't be able to make it to the ceremony. But just 10 minutes ago, I saw his old girlfriend, Isabel, post a photo of herself on social media from the airport. In the picture, she was holding a bouquet of calla lilies, and behind her, a man was pushing her luggage cart, looking down at her with an adoring expression. That man was the same one who had told me he had an important meeting. The trophy in my hand felt cool, a solid reminder that this moment was very real. First, I want to thank everyone who has supported me over the years, and I want to thank the committee for giving me the opportunity to stand here. I began. I paused for a moment, my gaze sweeping over the sea of faces below. But tonight, I have another announcement to make. The quiet chatter in the hall immediately died down as countless cameras turned to focus on my face. I took a shallow breath, my eyes landing once more on that empty seat. As of today, I will be retiring from the entertainment industry. The room erupted. Camera flashes went off like a torrential downpour. I could already imagine tomorrow's headlines, but it didn't matter anymore. Regarding the rumors about Mr. Alexander Croft and myself, my voice continued steady. We are just friends, nothing more. All the previous reports were nothing but a common marketing tactic in this industry. I would like to offer my sincere apologies to Mr. Croft for this farce that never should have started. While Alexander was at the airport picking up his old flame, I was performing the final scene of my career, a graceful exit at my peak, playing the part of the loser. After I left the stage, my agent, Carla, grabbed my arm. Maya, are you insane? Do you have any idea what this means? Does Alexander know? He doesn't, I answered calmly, but it's what he wanted anyway. The memory of that night a week ago surfaced in my mind. It was Alexander's private celebration party. I had finished my event early to surprise him, but outside the private room, I heard a voice. Isabel's coming back. How are you going to explain your relationship with Maya? It was Alexander's friend Derek, speaking just as I was about to push the door open. I froze, listening as a few seconds of silence hung in the air. Then the voice that had whispered affectionately in my ear so many times spoke, cold and detached. Then we make sure she never knows Isabel exists. Wow, man, trying to have it all, huh? Derek's voice was teasing. But Maya's a big star. There's a lot about you two online. So what? We'll just say it was for publicity, he said with a dismissive shrug. Plenty of women in this business want to latch onto the great Alexander Croft. Plenty have tried to use me for hype. If you believed every post online, my harem would wrap around the city 5 times. I didn't hear Alexander argue. I never pushed the door open that night. I just quietly walked away. To be fair, Alexander had been good to me. Money, resources, protection. He never held back. Without him paving the way, how could I have gone from an unknown actress to a top-tier star in just a few years? Maybe things had gone too smoothly, the flowers and applause coming too easily, and it made me foolishly imagine that we had something more than a business arrangement. How ridiculous. If hearing that conversation through the door was a slap in the face, then him skipping my awards ceremony to pick up Isabel tonight was a bucket of ice water, shocking me back to reality. In front of the makeup mirror, I slowly wiped off my makeup. When my finger touched the beauty mark near the corner of my eye, I pressed down unconsciously. Alexander loved this mark. When we were intimate, his kisses would always linger there. Isabel has one too. My phone vibrated. A portfolio report from my financial advisor popped up at the same time as a message from Carla. The media narrative is being handled as you requested. Preliminary estimates for breach of contract penalties are around 80 million. But the good news is Alexander oversaw most of your endorsement deals, so the termination clauses are lenient. I glanced at the strings of numbers on the report. Thanks to my salary and my studio, I'd made a fortune over the years and my investments had paid off handsomely. Even after paying the penalties, it would barely be a scratch. Losing this patron was a shame, but I always knew when to cut my losses. When the benefactor's true love returns, the stand-in should have the good sense to exit gracefully, not linger as an option. That night, social media exploded. Maya wins Best Actress. Maya announces retirement. Maya admits to faking relationship. Not just Carla, but my personal phone was also blowing up. Among the missed calls was one from Alexander. After a while, he sent a short text. As long as you've thought it through. It was a breakup we both understood without saying a word. The trending topics listed my name next to Alexander's. Alexander Croft seen at airport. Paired with it was a photo of him at the arrivals gate, leaning down slightly to adjust Isabel's coat. The comments section blew up. So Maya was just a desperate clout chaser. Is there any doubt? The man himself just debunked it. Huh? Why would she say all that at her own award ceremony? Looks like he made her do it. Someone look up the girl he's picking up. I bet the real deal is back, so the counterfeit had to take a hike. I dropped my SIM card into the hotel toilet. Carla lunged to stop me, but it was too late. All the partners are looking for you. What if Alexander calls? I pressed the flush button, watching the small card spin and disappear. The business side is already being handled by the lawyers, right? As for my personal life, that's not important. But that's Alexander Croft. Carla, think clearly. Who pays your salary? I cut her off, but I also knew that everyone around me had tied my identity to Alexander. I had certainly benefited from his influence over the years, but it was over. Time would prove everything. Carla, book me a flight to Singapore. I opened my new laptop. I'd started preparing for this the day I realized I was just Isabel's stand-in. A new identity overseas, new accounts, diversified international assets. The first lesson Alexander ever taught me was to always have a plan B. I never thought I'd end up using it to leave him. A call from Maria, Alexander's housekeeper, came through on Carla's phone. When our relationship was good, I often stayed at his place, so I'd naturally left a lot of things behind. Miss Maya, your phone is off, Maria said, her voice hesitant. I was cleaning the apartment these past 2 days and found some of your things, and some of Mr. Croft's that have been put away for a long time. Do you want to come by and see what you want to keep? No need, I said calmly. Just throw my things away. But Maria hesitated. There's also a pair of rings. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome aboard. The cabin announcement cut her off. Miss Maya, are you at the airport? I gave a faint and a sharp crash suddenly sounded from the other end of the line, like a glass shattering on the floor. When I arrived in Singapore, it was just after a rainstorm. My partner, Sophia, who was there to pick me up, gave me a huge hug. I've waited so long. You're finally here. I hugged her back and raised an eyebrow. Good, because I have a new project I think you'll like. Let's talk on the way. Yes, I knew you were a gem, worth the wait. The person who came to pick me up was also my future business partner, Sophia Chen, the founder of New Horizons Capital. I had met her at a business banquet back home. At the time, Alexander and I were on good terms, and he often took me to these events to introduce me to new contacts. I was his date, and Sophia was an important guest. We would have never crossed paths if not for her dramatic arm candy. I had stepped out onto the terrace for some air and witnessed a scene. A young actor greedily demanding resources, and his impatient sponsor kicking him to the curb. You're too eager. You can't even read the room, Sophia said coolly to the young man, who, despite being 6'1", immediately deflated. Sophia's sharp gaze then moved past him and landed on me. Sorry, I was just getting some air. I didn't mean to interrupt. Prying is rude, I explained awkwardly, starting to back away. But to my surprise, Sophia looked at me thoughtfully. You're Maya. It was the first time that night I'd heard my own name from a stranger. What happened next was almost theatrical. Sophia recognized me because she had organized a women's charity event for which I had filmed a promotional video pro bono. A promo video? I searched my memory. I had filmed so many over the years I couldn't recall it. Sophia smiled and prompted me, menstruation is not a weakness, it is the tide of a woman's life. Then I remembered. I had indeed filmed a video for a campaign to break the stigma around menstruation. But that was before I was famous, back when I was still in school. I'd been scouted by an ad agency and done a few commercials that luckily did well enough to give me a small following. So when someone asked me to film a charity promo, I wasn't surprised. The organizer sent me the proposal. I thought the theme was meaningful and I agreed to do it for free. No need for payment. If your boss insists, just donate it to girls in rural areas. They did end up donating in my name, and I even received a thank you letter from a girl in one of those areas. I was in Europe working on a project when the promo was being filmed, so I never got to thank you in person, Sophia had said. I waved it off, saying it was nothing. Looking back, I remembered getting a call from Sophia about it, but it had been so long ago I'd forgotten her name. That night, Sophia and I hit it off. We even exchanged numbers and became friends. But I also remember how Alexander tried to stop it. He always sneered when I mentioned Sophia, calling her a manipulative woman who would do anything to get ahead. Take that charity event, for example. Her motives weren't pure. He told me to keep my distance, to preferably not contact her at all. So what? Even if her motives weren't pure, almost no man would even think of doing a project like that. Goodness isn't judged by intention, but by results. Even if there was a bit of selfishness in her kindness, the world became a little better because of what she did, I remember retorting. I think that was when Alexander started to realize that the pet he had raised for years suddenly had a mind of its own. His dissatisfaction with me became more and more apparent, and a rift grew between us. Look, a rainbow! Sophia's excited voice pulled me back to the present. Singapore was beautiful after the rain. A stunning rainbow stretched across the sky. This is a sign that our business will be a huge success. It definitely will be. Once in Singapore, I quickly got down to business. The first project was the one I mentioned to Sophia on the way from the airport, a line of safe, hypoallergenic menstrual pads. Sophia thought I was just spitballing, but when I put the business plan on her desk, she was taken aback. Looks like you're serious. Okay, let me read this and get back to you. Since this is your first time leading a project, I might have some suggestions. 5 months later, I was back in Chicago. Today was the first roadshow for our menstrual pad project. Our product had already passed early validation and small-scale testing. Now it was time for the official public launch. As a major financial hub, the success of this roadshow was crucial. Unlike last time, when I was in a glamorous gown accepting an award under the spotlights, this time I was in a tailored suit, working behind the scenes. But just as everything was ready, the young founder I was backing told me she had a crying problem. Maya, I don't know why, but now that we're at the stage, just looking at this crowd makes my voice tremble and I feel like crying. She was too scared to go on stage, so I had to bite the bullet and go up myself. The roadshow was also being live-streamed. A big screen faced the stage. When it was my turn, the once sparse chat feed started scrolling like crazy. Wait, didn't she retire from acting? What is she doing now? Is retiring just another publicity stunt? Probably. Her fake boyfriend has a real girlfriend now, so she has to find other ways to get attention. I used to like her acting, but she pulls too many stunts. It's such a turnoff. I glanced at the comments and began, Hello everyone, I'm Maya, an investing partner at New Horizons Capital. I've been following the Kher project from the start. Our founder, Jenna, is an incredibly capable and work-obsessed entrepreneur. Just before coming on stage, she told me she had a brilliant new idea for our next generation product. So she gave me the honor of presenting today. So please allow me to share a few words, both as an investor and as one of the first users of Kher. Fortunately, I was deeply involved in this project and knew the material inside and out, so the speech came easily. Gotta say, she's really well spoken, very professional, but almost too good. Is this scripted? I was almost converted, but you're telling me she's acting. Did you all forget who she is? Yeah, the one who won Best Actress 5 months ago. Hold on, I'm actually interested in the product she's talking about. Yeah, same. That high-end series with the sensor? I'm seriously tempted. I'm looking at the app they developed. I just downloaded it, and the user experience is amazing. I glanced at the shifting tide of the comments and smiled. Next was the Kwanda. Normally, this part of a public event is just a formality. A reporter asked, Miss Maya, I noticed a very large QR code on the Kher packaging. Why is it so much more prominent than on other brands' packaging? What was the thinking behind that? I said, that's an excellent question. Thank you for observing our product so closely. If you scan it, you'll see the difference. Usually the QR code on a pad package takes you to the company's official website, but with Kher, it takes you to a series of videos. We invited renowned gynecologists and doctors to create tutorials on how to use pads correctly and provide tips for menstrual health care. Besides that, the Kher app has many more videos on sexual health, physiology, and mental wellness, all created by experts in their fields. My point is, Kher has always aimed to be more than just a safe and reliable pad. Product safety is the baseline. Beyond that, Kher wants to focus on areas that are often overlooked, things that concern the future well-being of girls. The reporter followed up. Miss Maya, do people really need a video to learn how to use a pad? With all due respect, doesn't that seem more like a gimmick than a practical feature? I replied, I see you're a woman as well. You're young, dressed in designer clothes. You must lead a very fortunate life. She unconsciously straightened her back, a slight smile touching her lips before she forced them into a professional line. But I want to say, please accept that the world is not the same for everyone. Many young urban women like yourself may not know this, but according to our latest market research, 38% of adolescent girls in this country have no idea what to do when they get their first period. I know a young woman, I paused slightly, who grew up without a female role model. She learned how to use a pad from the lady at the corner store, but the lady only taught her how to put it on. She didn't know you're supposed to change it every few hours. So she would use one pad for the entire day. It wasn't until college, when her roommate found out, that she learned this basic fact that we all take for granted. For them, do you think a professional tutorial video is a gimmick or a necessity? What I didn't say was that this young woman was Jenna, the girl who had brought me her business plan. I didn't miss the flicker of disgust on the young reporter's face. After answering, I tried to move on, but she persisted. But we also see that the products you're promoting today are high-end. Do you think all women can afford this monthly expense? Can the people you mentioned, who don't even know the basics, afford them? I said Kher has developed multiple product lines for different user needs. For example, our high-end Stardust series has smart monitoring functions with app notifications for optimal changing times and alerts for abnormal discharge, along with a cycle health report. Naturally, it's priced higher. But we also have a basic line, the Daybreak series, which focuses on the core function of a pad and is therefore more affordable, suitable for budget-conscious users. The reporter pressed, so the basic line is cheap. Can you really guarantee its quality? I answered calmly, cheap doesn't mean low quality. The procurement standards for our basic line exceed national requirements. We control costs through supply chain optimization. That's a strength of New Horizons capital. But I think what's more convincing than my words is that the founder of Kher, Miss Jenna, uses the Daybreak series herself. The reporter looked surprised. Why? Perhaps that's the reason she won me over. When Jenna came to me for investment, she said, a good product can have no ceiling, but the basic line must hold the bottom line. I want to be the one who defends that line. Okay, we've discussed this topic thoroughly. Next question. Wait, I have one last question. I smiled. It seemed this reporter was determined to cause trouble today. I nodded for her to continue. She asked a bit provocatively, "Why is the brand called Kher? Do you have to add an English word to make it seem high-end? Or is it some kind of pandering to the West?" I recalled her determined gaze. I fully endorse the Kher brand and believe in its future potential. Besides serving the women of our country, we also plan to take the brand global. If you had read the materials we placed on every seat before the roadshow, I emphasized the word read, you would know that Kher has already completed company registration and patent filings in several Southeast Asian countries. In the future, Kher will be an international brand. So not only this time, but every time, including in future overseas markets, we will proudly introduce Kher. As for using English to sound high-end, I chuckled. I think real class is making global consumers remember a brand from China, not getting hung up on whether its name has English letters. Don't you agree? Holy crap, Maya is terrifyingly good. Her ability to think on her feet is insane. If this isn't scripted, I will be her most loyal fan. Can I please rejoin her fan club even though she retired? The people who said she was acting, how does that crow taste? Does your face hurt? It's a script. It's a script. It's a script. The reporter Kwanda is always staged. So hard for you to admit someone else is brilliant. I looked up that reporter. No way she'd be working with Maya because the flood of comments obscured the rest of the text. After the roadshow, Jenna found me. She stood with her head down, nervously fiddling with the hem of her clothes. The confident founder was gone, replaced by a child who had done something wrong. Maya, I'm so sorry. I almost ruined the roadshow. I'm so useless. I patted her head. Don't be silly. Just by being here, you're already amazing. Seeing her still biting her lip, I smiled and ruffled her hair. The first time I acted, I had to do 27 takes to get it right. You know what the director said? People who are afraid of making a fool of themselves will never make it on stage. But that didn't stop me from winning Best Actress 3 years later. Jenna, you just lack experience in public speaking. It's okay, we can practice. But you do need to get used to being in the spotlight. I can handle the A and B rounds for you, but for Kher to reach millions of girls, it has to be you, the founder. I had seen the video of Jenna filming the Kher promo. In her office, she spoke about the product to the camera with eloquence and passion. She was great. She just lacked the confidence to speak in front of a large audience, a common shyness among first-time founders. But I believed the fiery passion in her heart would melt that final thin layer of ice. Sophia's call came in as I was standing in front of that local restaurant I hadn't been to in half a year. In the twilight, the familiar carved doorframe glowed with a warm light. Congratulations! The roadshow is trending, and the public opinion is incredibly positive, I laughed. Thanks. I thought you were busy with the Indonesia project. You had time to watch the live stream? How could I miss your first roadshow? Sophia's tone suddenly shifted. By the way, that reporter today was sent by a competitor, wasn't she? That would make things interesting, she chuckled. But seriously, without her difficult questions, you probably wouldn't have gotten such a great result. Yeah, she really set me up for the slam dunk. That brick served its purpose well. As Sophia and I were chatting, the door to my private room was pushed open. I said, I need to deal with something. Talk to you later. Sophia was confused. Weren't you going to dinner? Are you working after eating? No, the person who threw that brick just showed up. Great performance at the roadshow. Thank you. For you to personally send a reporter to try to sabotage me, Mr. Croft, I'm flattered. 5 months ago, you walked away with a trophy full of righteous indignation. You quit acting just to sell menstrual pads? Alexander sneered, holding a copy of the Kher roadshow flyer as he sat down across from me. I fell silent and pressed the service bell. If you had just said you didn't want to act anymore, I could have arranged something for you. Come to Croft Capital. Tech, semiconductors, clean energy, take your pick. Don't waste your time on these low-brow investments. Mr. Croft, what are your terms? Hire me. A VP title, stock options, all contingent on you coming back. I almost laughed out loud. Me come back? What about your old flame, Mr. Croft? Alexander frowned. There's nothing between us. At the end of the day, you're just upset that there are other women around me. But I'm a businessman. Sometimes contact is unavoidable. If you mind, I'll be more careful. I clenched my fists, thinking, if news broke that Kher's investor got into a fight right after the roadshow, would it affect the brand? I suppressed my anger. Alexander, what makes you think I would ever come back? Alexander shot back. What's so great about following Sophia? I told you she's a ruthless woman. Her, back then? Are you going to bring up her charity for PR story again, Mr. Croft? Yes, I am. Her reputation was so bad back then, it was about to affect the funding of one of her investments. That's why she did that so-called charity event to turn her image around. Then why don't you also mention that her reputation was bad because she rejected the boss of Feng Yu Media, who then launched a smear campaign against her? Maya! He shot up, throwing the flyers onto the table. The chair scraped harshly against the floor. She's brainwashed you. I'd like to see how long you two last. The door to the room slammed shut with a deafening bang. A moment later, a waiter peeked in timidly. Miss Maya, you called for me? I looked at the scattered flyers on the floor. I haven't been here in 6 months, and now people can just barge into private rooms? My apologies. I thought Mr. Croft was... I picked up my bag and stood up. Please cancel my membership. The day Kher broke into the top 10 on the e-commerce emerging brands list, my second investment project, Roundtable, launched on all platforms. Roundtable was the country's first flexible work platform dedicated to female freelancers. With features like smart job matching, trial periods, service implementation security protocols, and skill enhancement training, the platform helped single women find work safely, assisted mothers in balancing work and family, and allowed women to continue their professional development at every stage of life. In a warm, brightly lit home, the founder, Emily, was introducing Roundtable to an interviewing journalist. I couldn't help but think of the first time I met Emily 3 months ago. She had changed our meeting location at the last minute to a hospital corridor. When I arrived, she was typing furiously on her laptop, a 3-month-old baby in her lap. Need some help? I knelt down, and she handed the baby to me without a second thought, continuing to work. Sorry, this is urgent. The client is rushing me for revisions. 10 minutes later, she finally closed her laptop and apologized sheepishly. It's okay. By the way, I think the baby might have wet his diaper. Should you change him? Emily's face immediately turned red. She apologized profusely, grabbed the baby, and rushed to the nursing room. I had assumed Emily was a married mother. It wasn't until we finally sat down that she explained, the baby is my sister's. My sister is in the hospital with some complications and called me to help. What about your brother-in-law's family? My brother-in-law was an orphan. He died when my sister was 8 months pregnant. Roundtable went live. In the first month, registered users surpassed 3,400, and it facilitated 765 freelance transactions. But just as Emily and I were ambitiously planning our next steps, disaster struck. A 30-year-old new mother named Clara claimed her baby was accidentally injured because she had no one to watch him while she was on a job she found through the platform. Her husband posted videos on multiple social media platforms accusing Roundtable of false advertising, claiming the promised childcare service never materialized, and showing photos of the injured baby. This trash platform got my kid hurt. My wife was tricked into taking a job right after giving birth, and now who's responsible for my injured child? The story went viral. The hashtag #RoundtableHarmsPeople was trending. A wave of malice swept the internet. These platforms just want women to be both mothers and money-making machines. The capitalists are shameless, sending new mothers out to work, profiting off their blood and tears. Of course it's just another capitalist scheme to prey on women's anxieties. I don't know if the founder has kids, but you should check out who the investor is. Holy crap, it's Maya again. Looks like she got a taste of that female empowerment money from the PAD project and wants more. When Emily told me she had contacted Clara's husband on social media, only to be completely shut down, I realized this was probably not an accident. I called Sophia and asked for her help. I also told Emily to stop trying to contact the husband and instead find a way to reach Clara directly. I needed to know Clara's side of the story. but the contact information she left on our platform is unreachable now. I had to pull some strings. Sophia told me to stay off social media. The PR team was on it. Some people defended me. So what if she's dated a few people? I'm a single mom and one of the first users of Roundtable. I've found 2 jobs on it that let me bring my kid. It's really friendly to single moms. New platforms are bound to have flaws at the start. The important thing is to fix them. But these voices were drowned out by the chorus of outrage. Sophia flew to Chicago. She was constantly on the phone, dealing with the crisis. Alexander sent me a text. Come back, name your price. I deleted it without a second thought. While Sophia was busy, I went into my room and made some calls of my own. During this time, something else happened. Alexander's old flame, Isabel, contacted me. I thought they would have gotten together immediately after I left, but strangely, they never did. Isabel said she had something to discuss. She met me at the coffee shop downstairs from my apartment, and we talked for an hour. We found Clara in a cramped, crowded apartment. She was indeed recovering from childbirth. She was holding a crying baby when she opened the door. The man who had been so vocal on social media demanding justice for his wife and child was nowhere to be seen. She didn't even know what had been happening online for the past 2 days. She said that on the day of the job, the childcare provider she had booked was late. She had asked her husband to watch the baby for a moment, but somehow the baby fell and started crying. Thankfully, a hospital checkup showed no serious injuries. Her husband had said he would seek compensation from the platform, but told her to focus on recovering and taking care of the baby and that he would handle it. Emily and I exchanged a look. We understood. As we were leaving, I asked her, "Did you know your husband has multiple large online loans?" He... Clara's voice trembled. He's gambling again? She instinctively tightened her arms, holding the baby closer. That evening, Roundtable released a new statement. To our valued users and the public, recently, the incident involving the injury of user Miss Clara's child has drawn widespread attention online. After an internal investigation and with the assistance of the police, we have confirmed that this incident was a malicious, premeditated smear campaign. The relevant evidence has been handed over to the judicial authorities. However, in this process, we have also identified areas for improvement in our child care service notification system. Along with the statement, Clara herself posted a video online clarifying what had happened. Everyone thought the drama was over, but when they saw that 7 of the top 10 trending topics were related to Roundtable, they realized this was an absolute, overwhelming comeback. Cisco International joins Roundtable's corporate service procurement platform. Kher and Roundtable signed strategic partnership agreement. 13 law firms announced joint representation in Roundtable smear case. Renowned scholar Professor Chen Saiwan discusses female independence, praises Roundtable. Neighboring city government signs stable employment service agreement with Roundtable. Roundtable victim clarifies platform not at fault. Roundtable launches mom's peace of mind plan. Even though I knew the whole PR plan, I was still amazed at how fast the topics climbed the trending list. 7 out of the top 10. I looked at Sophia. How did you do that? Sophia tossed her hair. Don't worship me. Ever since Feng Yu screwed me over, I've known the importance of controlling the narrative. But even Sophia was surprised by the 13 law firms. When did you arrange that? While you were on the phone with Professor Chen, doesn't our company have a legal team? Because besides going after our rival and Clara's husband, I have no intention of letting those who spread rumors and malicious slander online get away with it either. Sophia casually clicked on the official accounts of 2 of the law firms. The latest post from Firm A was a picture of a conference table covered with what looked like hundreds of lawsuits. Firm B had posted a photo in front of a courthouse with the caption, "The internet is not a lawless place. We will protect Miss Maya's rights." Ugh, that caption is a bit cringe, Sophia muttered, but ignoring the small details, she marveled. Law firms these days are incredibly efficient. Of course, I said. The firm with the best overall performance gets a first consideration for a long-term legal retainer for all my future investment projects. But seriously, Sophia said, I'm sorry you got dragged into this. You mean the stuff online? I laughed. I don't care. They can only resort to tired old slut shaming to hide their fear of a woman's professional competence. It's pathetic. Then her tone shifted. By the way, isn't Cisco International Isabel's company? I nodded. My mind went back to that afternoon in the coffee shop with Isabel. She had gotten straight to the point, saying she admired Roundtable's vision, and that some of Cisco's departments needed that kind of flexible workforce. She wanted to partner with me. Why? Does this have anything to do with Alexander? Don't get me wrong, this is my company's decision. It has nothing to do with him. But speaking of which, I do owe you an explanation. I was the one who asked Alexander to pick me up the day you announced your retirement. I was doing it to prove a point to my family, and I genuinely didn't know it was such an important night for you. But rest assured, Alexander and I were never together. I'll admit I had a crush on him when we were young, but after I went abroad, that teenage infatuation faded away. I said, I have nothing to do with him anymore either. I'm just asking to avoid any complications with our future partnership. One more question. For an established company like Cisco, isn't this kind of workforce adjustment a bit too drastic? We can start with a phased collaboration, Isabel had said, but then made a firm decision. I've already reached a consensus with my HR director on the reform plan. We'll finalize the execution details in a joint meeting. And once I've given you my word, you don't need to doubt its sincerity. At the end, she lifted her chin slightly, a sharp glint in her eye. Did you really think I came back just to play games with Alexander? Gaining power on the board is much more interesting. Sophia said Isabel was not to be underestimated. She had briefly clashed with Cisco on a previous business project. Sophia knew her opponents. Isabel had built a successful career abroad before her father called her back to Cisco. In just 1 year back, she had won over more than half the board, far surpassing her two brothers who had been at the company for years. The word was that the next leader of the Tsai family was about to be chosen, and it was likely to be her. Her willingness to partner with Roundtable was a good thing. I nodded, thinking of something else. And the government procurement service agreement? Our platform is still in its early stages. How did we get government support? I told you, I believe in Roundtable's potential. If you really feel indebted, you can just convert my shares into cash, Sophia teased. Just as Sophia had predicted, after the storm of public opinion subsided, what was left behind wasn't a ruined shore, but a foundation of trust that had been washed stronger and harder. And on that foundation, a skyscraper was being built. 3 months later, the platform's registered users surpassed 200,000, and the daily volume of jobs had quintupled. Someone got her first design job after her divorce, using the income to pay for her child's tuition. Someone else, after being confined to the home for years, learned new skills on the platform and re-entered the workforce. A group of women even formed a mom's job finding alliance, helping each other with childcare and sharing job leads. In the Roundtable conference room, Emily projected a map of new users onto the wall. The glowing dots representing active users were clustered brightly in second and third-tier cities, places with the most hidden unemployed women. Mothers forced out of the workforce, young people returning to small towns, and daughters caring for paralyzed parents while trying to earn an income. Later, thanks to the high-quality, efficient services provided by the women of Roundtable, more and more companies proactively joined the platform. Alexander also called me, saying his company wanted to join Roundtable's corporate service procurement platform. I passed the matter to Emily to handle, as I was already moving on to the next project. I went on to invest in more and more projects. In media reports, my title gradually changed from retired award-winning actress to co-founder of New Horizons Capital. When a proposal for an egg-freezing project landed on my desk, Sophia teased me for being obsessed with the female-focused track. I said I believe in the infinite potential of women. Male entrepreneurs change the world. Female entrepreneurs are changing the rules of how the world runs. The next time I saw Alexander was in my office. Unlike in all the revenge novels, in the years since I left, Alexander had continued to do well. His company didn't go bankrupt. After all, the Croft family's wealth was built over generations. It was deeply rooted. Compared to the previous generations of his family, Alexander might seem mediocre. But with the Croft family's foundation and the support of professional managers, he was set for a life of luxury. The only thing that probably hadn't gone his way was me, his runaway ex. Because now, after all these years, Alexander was standing in my office saying, I regret it, Maya. I regret it. His brow was furrowed as he, for the first time, bowed his head to me. The tip of my fountain pen bled a small ink blot onto the paper. I gently closed the folder and glanced at the business magazine on my desk. It was the latest issue my assistant had just brought in. I was on the cover. Inside was a feature interview about my journey from actress to co-founder of an investment firm. Alexander followed my gaze. Mr. Croft, do you know what I'm best at now? He looked up at me and, surprisingly, played along. Investing, calculating ROI. Relationships are investments too. When a stock is consistently losing you money, the rational thing to do is to cut your losses. And you, clearly, are no longer in my portfolio. I came clean. All those years ago at the club, I heard that conversation. That night, I never pushed the door open. I just quietly walked away. Alexander's face went pale. Later, I thought about it. A high-end private club like that. How could it have such poor privacy? Unless you, Mr. Croft, authorized it. On your own turf, how could something like that have happened otherwise? He knew then that he and I would never have a future. That night at the club had been a loyalty test they had set up for me. What a shame I didn't pass. I said softly, You may be high and mighty, Mr. Croft, but you underestimated the dignity of a defiant woman like me. By the way, I called out one last time as he was leaving. Alexander stopped and a flicker of hope crossed his eyes as he turned. I remember you once asked me why I invested in a lowbrow project like menstrual pads. He frowned, seemingly confused as to why I was bringing this up. It's just a coincidence, but last week, an investor told me I should set my sights on a broader world. I asked him, is the world of women not broad enough? Alexander's expression shifted, as if he wanted to say something. I looked him straight in the eye and continued. Alexander, my world is already much bigger than you can imagine. We've turned the page. Don't come here again. After Alexander left, Sophia leaned against my desk, a gossipy glint in her eye. Spill! What was that all about? I didn't look up, continuing to flip through the documents in my hand. He regrets it. He wants to get back together. Sophia made ask sound, disgusted as if she'd heard something foul. The nerve of him. Then she looked at me, confused. He actually asked me why I could work with Isabel, the woman who practically forced me into exile, but I couldn't give him another chance. Sophia's expression became a masterpiece of disbelief, as if she'd just heard the most absurd joke of the century. Seriously? What's so hard to understand about that? It's called, she rolled her eyes, mutual respect between successful women. What does he have to do with it? Sophia was on a roll. Besides, you two broke up because he was an idiot. What does that have to do with Isabel? Isabel used him, sure, but if he'd had half a brain back then, you two wouldn't have ended up where you did. I couldn't help but laugh, raising a hand to stop her. Okay, if you keep ranting, we're going to be late for the awards ceremony tonight. Sophia slapped her forehead, remembering. Oh, right. You're presenting the Best Actress Award at the film festival tonight. Outside, the evening sky deepened. The lights of Marina Bay began to glitter, turning the glass curtain wall of the building into a sheet of shimmering gold. In the distance, the Merlion fountain sprayed water high into the air, the droplets catching the last rays of sunset like scattered stars falling to earth. I closed the file and stood up. Let's go. Time to change. Kay. Kher's international launch was a success, with first-month sales exceeding 60 million. Jenna held the celebration party in Singapore and formally invited Sophia and me. When Sophia arrived, she stared at the giant celebration cake, which had 3 cute hand-in-hand girls sculpted on top, and was completely bewildered. She asked me, "Is this a kindergarten party?" But a moment later, she presented Jenna with a huge gift. She joked with me, "Your first project was a real success, though you had a hand in it too." But I corrected her. You were the angel investor for this project. Sophia frowned, trying to remember. I grinned. Jenna is the little girl who wrote you that thank you letter. Holy crap, why didn't you tell me sooner? She asked me not to, I said, pointing to the girl on stage who was waving us over to cut the cake with her. She wanted to achieve something first to give you a real surprise. Isabel got married. Her choice of husband stunned everyone. Although the man's resume and looks were impressive, they paled in comparison to Isabel's family background. Isabel said, "He's a great guy, provides plenty of emotional support, and our relationship is wonderful. We have a clear understanding of our future family roles. He'll handle the outside world, I'll handle the home. And most importantly," she patted her baby bump, "we're having a baby. This is the first grandson of the Tsai family. My father is thrilled and has decided to retire and hand over the reins to me. The company's shareholders have no objections either. After all, my two brothers are not up to the task, and my status as a married soon-to-be mother makes me a more trustworthy leader to shareholders and outside investors." "How wonderful," Sophia sighed as Isabel walked gracefully down the aisle in her wedding dress. "You could get married too," I teased. Sophia's face instantly changed. "Not getting married," she said, her voice firm. "Right now, people just say I'm ruthless. I'm afraid if I get married, they'll say I'm a ruthless, cold, selfish woman who neglects her family and mistreats her husband.